Now working on the transition to power following his truly remarkable White House win, and they'll be working with a Republican-controlled House and Senate as he works to implement his controversial campaign pledges. Let's get some more with our panel, and let me start with the news from Bernie Sanders, the independent senator, I should say, who caucuses with the Democrats. He just issued a statement on Donald Trump. Let me read this excerpt, quote, "To the degree that Mr. Trump is serious about pursuing policies that improve the lives of working families in this country, I and other progressives are prepared to work with him. To the degree that he pursues racist, sexist, xenophobic, and anti-environment policies, we will vigorously oppose him." David Axelrod. Yeah.
Listen, I think that the appropriate posture to take is to work with him when they agree and to vigorously oppose him when they don't. But it's interesting to hear Bernie Sanders make this statement because there's one big thing on which they do agree, which is opposition to trade, to these trade treaties. So there may be one piece of the agenda on which the left and right come together here.
There is one big issue, though, which is climate change, which is Bernie Sanders' raison d'etre. He would talk to you during the campaign. Yeah. Everything was climate change to him.
Not so much with Donald Trump.
Not so much with Donald Trump.
Climate change.
He will
Donald Trump thinks climate change is a Chinese hoax.
Right.
I mean, environmental regulation is gone. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, is going to be
and this will
decimated.
rally the
I think
Sanders
Gloria's
supporters.
point is that this isn't going to sit well with Bernie Sanders.
This will be.
You know what? You know what the Democrats are? Irrelevant. So what? It doesn't sit well with Bernie Sanders. I mean, really. I mean, the Democrats don't control the Senate, don't control the House. They're irrelevant.
Yeah. Let me go to Manu. I'm going to bring Manu Raju, our senior political reporter, into this. Manu, you had a chance to speak with the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell. What did he tell you?
Well, he was in a good mood, Wolf, obviously, because Republicans looked like they were going to lose the majority in the Senate just a couple of days ago. And in fact, they only lost 2 seats and looked like they're going to have a 52-48 Senate majority in the next year. But we had a chance to ask him a lot of questions at a news conference earlier today about Donald Trump, his positions on some of the key issues. And it's clear that a lot of the things Donald Trump was saying on the campaign trail just may not pass muster with the Senate Republican leadership. One, on term limits, he said that's not going to happen, and Donald Trump says he wanted, of course, drain the swamp. Also, Mitch McConnell expressing his support for NATO. Of course, that's an institution that Donald Trump told you, Wolf, that is obsolete. And also about that border wall with Mexico. I asked Mitch McConnell 3 times at this press conference today whether or not he supports a wall with Mexico, as Donald Trump has made a centerpiece of his campaign. And Mitch McConnell just flatly would not say. He said, we need to do something about border security, and I'll look for the best, most effective way to do it. It really just shows, Wolf, that the Republican Party leadership is just not quite sure what they're in for with Donald Trump. Will he push traditional Republican bills, traditional Republican ideas, or will he champion those populist ideas that were so controversial on the campaign trail? They just don't know yet, Wolf.
Gloria, in his victory speech last night, Donald Trump sought to reach out to all Americans, including those who didn't support him. Listen to this.
Now it's time for America to bind the wounds of division. Have to get together. To all Republicans and Democrats and independents across this nation, I say it is time for us to come together as one united people. It's time. I pledge to every citizen of our land that I will be president for all Americans, and this is so important to me. For those who have chosen not to support me in the past, of which there were a few people, I'm reaching out to you for your guidance and your help so that we can work together and unify our great country. As I've said from the beginning, ours was not a campaign, but rather an incredible and great movement made up of millions of hardworking men and women who love their country and want a better, brighter future for themselves and for their family. It's a movement comprised of Americans from all races, religions, backgrounds, and beliefs who want and expect our government to serve the people, and serve the people it will.
All right, Gloria, how effective is that strategy going to be?
Look, I think you have to give Donald Trump credit last night for that speech. I think he did exactly what he ought to do, which is reach out to everybody in his new role as, the president-elect of the United States. And so I give him credit for doing that. The question is, and we'll just have to see, can he continue along that line and still say, I'm going to build a wall and have Mexico pay for it. I'm going to take away Obamacare and go down. I'm going to undo all the executive actions that on immigration, and I'm going to get rid of climate change policy. Can he do that and still do all the things that he has promised his supporters he will do, because he wants to keep his base of the Republican Party intact and his coalition intact? So that remains to be seen. But as for last night, heading into the office of the presidency, I think he did exactly the right thing.
He's going to be meeting tomorrow with the White House with President Obama. Can he do it? Can he govern the way he has campaigned?
Not if he keeps the pledge that he made last night.
Right.
I mean, the whole essence of his campaign was to polarize the American people and to incite his constituency, and he did that very effectively. If he's going to govern in a way that brings people together and accomplish things, then he's going to have to govern differently. But as Jeff points out, he has the advantage of a Republican Congress. He doesn't have the numbers in the Senate to avoid getting tied up in the way the Senate does.
Usually in the Senate, if something's really important, you need 60 votes,
right.
not a majority.
He has 52. But so he could run into that quagmire. But what he's going to find is that governing is not simply tweeting and holding and going on television and inflaming. Governing means sitting down, doing the homework, bringing people together, and forging progress, and that's a whole different pursuit.
I would very quickly, David, but Jeffrey, you're basically suggesting the Democrats now in this new Congress, with the Republicans in the majority in the executive branch, the White House, as the legislative branch, and soon the judicial branch, the Democrats are becoming irrelevant?
Absolutely. I think, when you look at the areas of agreement between Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump, the areas of agreement are much bigger than the areas of disagreement. There are a few disagreements, but abolishing Obamacare, cutting taxes, abolishing the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, limiting environmental enforcement. I mean, those are all forces that unite them, and they will clearly have the votes to do it. And the filibuster exists currently in the Senate, but it is far from clear that Mitch McConnell will allow the filibuster to continue if the Democrats actually do obstruct their agenda.
I think that the point, though, Jeffrey, is that there is the House Republicans is a smaller caucus. They've got their own internal issues. The Senate does have the filibuster rule, and wily leaders on both sides of the Capitol can create problems for them in this regard, political problems. So I don't think it's simply a lay down on the part of the Democrats. I think the Democrats are going to be very active in thwarting that agenda when they see problems with it.
But the Democrats are going to have their own civil war here, because, you're going to have some Democrats up in red states in the next campaign, and they're going to be wanting to cut some more deals, perhaps, with Republicans. Then the left wing of the Democratic Party is going to want to cut, the Elizabeth Warrens and the Bernie Sanders. And so the Democrats are going to have to chart a path for themselves if they want to have the possibility of
a lot more Democrats up for re-election in 2 years.
Exactly, and perhaps retaking control.
How's the transition looking right now, David?
Well, we're hearing a lot of names of individuals who might be cabinet secretaries. The most interesting name among those to me is Rudy Giuliani, former prosecutor, former mayor of New York. If he is, as his name has been floated, the top candidate for attorney general, I think it'll be interesting to see, to your point about what Congress will do with Trump, well, actually Republicans in Congress, whether Republicans who have worked on criminal justice reform, like Senator Mike Lee, like Senator Rand Paul, say anything, or if they will just sort of go along and rubber stamp Donald Trump's choice, even though...
and Rudy Giuliani has also been outspoken, as of course has Donald Trump, that Hillary Clinton should be prosecuted in connection with the Clinton Foundation and the emails. This is something that is not dead by any means.
Do you think he'll appoint a special prosecutor?
I don't think he needs to appoint a special prosecutor. He could just have it done in the Justice Department. There's no more conflict of interest. She's no longer in the government. I mean, I think, Donald Trump abhors weakness and loves revenge. And this is something he's written about, he said it, and I think prosecuting Hillary Clinton is something that will be very much on the table.
Yeah, the question is whether he'll move to heal all wounds, as he said last night, or wound the people he considers to be heels. And we'll see. And if he doesn't, if he acts in the second, I think it's going to be a galvanic, very difficult 4 year.
And if it's anybody other than Rudy Giuliani, I don't know that they would be so eager. And there are questions about whether Rudy Giuliani would be the most likely person to become the next Attorney General.
All right, Manu, in his remarks earlier today, President Obama spoke about the importance of this transition. I want to play for you what the president said.
I had a chance to talk to President-elect Trump last night, about 3:30 in the morning, I think it was, to congratulate him on winning the election. And I had a chance to invite him to come to the White House tomorrow to talk about making sure that there is a successful transition between our presidencies. Now, it is no secret that the president-elect and I have some pretty significant differences. But remember, 8 years ago, President Bush and I had some pretty significant differences. But President Bush's team could not have been more professional or more gracious in making sure we had a smooth transition so that we could hit the ground running. And one thing you realize quickly in this job is that the presidency and the vice presidency is bigger than any of us. So I have instructed my team to follow the example that President Bush's team set 8 years ago and work as hard as we can to make sure that this is a successful transition for the president-elect. Because we are now all rooting for his success in uniting and leading the country. The peaceful transition of power is one of the hallmarks of our democracy. And over the next few months, we are going to show that to the world.
All right, so Manu, how might the president inspire Democrats to work in good faith with the president-elect?
Well, I think these are similar to what the messages that you hear at the end of every election, vowing to work together, and so forth. But what we're really will really be determinative of whether or not Democrats can work with Donald Trump is how Donald Trump forges ahead with his own agenda. Does he try to push bills and legislation in which Democrats can easily support, like a jobs infrastructure bill, for instance? Or does he go guns blazing, repeal Obamacare, build that wall with Mexico? And then conversely, how do Democrats deal with that too? Gloria made a key point earlier. There's going to be a fundamental divide, particularly within the Senate Democratic caucus, between the liberal progressive wing, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren wing, and moderate Democrats who are facing very difficult re-election races, 5 actually from deeply red states that Trump won convincingly last night. And I talked to one of them today, Wolf, Joe Manchin of West Virginia, who said that it would be the stupidest thing for the Democratic Party, these are his words, the stupidest thing for the Democratic Party to fight Donald Trump tooth and nail. He thinks that it's time to work with him and cut deals. And sometimes Democrats may agree it makes sense to fight Donald Trump, but other times the party will be divided. So there's going to be it's going to be determinative on how Donald Trump approaches the new Congress, but also how Democrats themselves, whether or not they think it's time to cut deals or time to battle what they believe is bad policy from Donald Trump.
All right, Manu, good explanation. Everybody stand by. We have much more coming up.